Raising children wasn't just about keeping them safe, it was about preparing them for the world. Daniel and Lisa understood this well. Their children, Ethan and Sophie, were still young, but childhood passed quickly. Before long, they would be teenagers, then adults, facing the world on their own. If they were to grow into kind, responsible, and respectful individuals, those lessons had to begin now. One afternoon, Ethan's soccer ball soared over the fence and into the neighbor's garden, knocking over a row of freshly planted flowers. For a moment, he considered running inside, pretending nothing had happened. But as he hesitated, he felt his mother's silent presence behind him, waiting for his decision. Taking a deep breath, he walked over and knocked on the neighbor's door. When the door opened, he explained what had happened, apologized, and offered to help fix the damage. The neighbor, though momentarily surprised, nodded in appreciation of his honesty. That evening, as the family sat together, his father playfully ruffled his hair, acknowledging the courage it took to own up to his mistake. Ethan smiled to himself. Admitting fault wasn't easy, but it felt better than the guilt of hiding the truth. For months, Sophie had begged for a puppy. She had promised to take care of it, to feed it, to walk it, anything to prove she was ready. When the day finally came, and little Max became part of the family, she was overjoyed. At first, she spent every moment with him, playing and cuddling. But as the weeks passed, the excitement faded. Walks became a chore, feeding him felt like a task, and she began to forget the responsibilities she had once eagerly accepted. One evening, Daniel noticed Max's food bowl was empty. He called Sophie over, his voice calm but firm. If she wasn't willing to care for him, he explained, they might have to find a home where someone else would. The thought of losing Max struck her harder than she had expected. Guilt welled up as she realized that love wasn't just about enjoying the good moments, it was about responsibility. From that day on, she fed, walked, and trained Max, not because anyone reminded her, but because she knew it was her duty. Arguments between Ethan and Sophie were nothing new. One afternoon, a simple disagreement over whose turn it was to play a game escalated into shouting. Frustration built between them, each determined to win. Their parents intervened, not with scolding, but with quiet guidance. Disagreements were inevitable, but how they were handled mattered more than who was right. Respect, they reminded the children, wasn't about agreeing all the time. It was about listening, understanding, and sometimes choosing to walk away instead of fighting. The lesson lingered in Ethan's mind. The next day at school, he watched as two friends argued over something trivial. Instead of jumping in or taking sides, he simply listened. He noticed how, when one person felt heard, the tension eased. That evening, as he reflected on the moment, he realized something unexpected. Problems were solved much faster through listening than by trying to be the loudest voice in the room. At the grocery store, the cashier struggled to bag items as the line behind her grew longer. Customers shifted impatiently, sighing audibly, but no one stepped forward to help. Without a word, Sophie moved to the counter and began bagging the groceries. The cashier looked up, surprised but grateful, and smiled warmly at the unexpected gesture. As they walked out of the store, Lisa gently squeezed her daughter's hand. Sophie simply shrugged. No one had asked her to help, she had just seen someone who needed it. Daniel, watching her quietly, felt a swell of pride. True kindness, he knew, was doing the right thing even when no one was watching. One weekend, Daniel and Lisa took Ethan and Sophie to a local shelter to volunteer. The idea of serving meals to strangers felt odd to Ethan. He couldn't help but wonder why they were helping people they didn't even know. His mother knelt beside him and explained gently. A strong community wasn't just built on the people one knew, but on the kindness shared with those in need. As Ethan handed a meal to an elderly man, he noticed the gratitude in the man's eyes. At that moment, something shifted inside him. Helping wasn't just a duty, it was an act of connection, of making the world a little better for someone else. Moral: children don't learn kindness, responsibility, honesty, and respect from words alone. They learn by watching, experiencing, and practicing these values every day. Parenting isn't just about keeping kids out of trouble. It's about raising them to become good people. Are we preparing our children for the world ahead? If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more meaningful content. Your support helps us bring more stories that matter.